I never thought one evening could turn my world upside down, but that night, everything shifted. It started like any other. My husband, Ethan, and I sitting by the fireplace, lost in quiet conversation. The flames crackled, usually a comforting sound, but that night, it felt different, restless, unsettled, just like the air between us. We had been married for 15 years, a life built on shared experiences, laughter, and the usual ups and downs of marriage. Ethan, always dependable, sat across from me, staring into the fire as if searching for something lost. I sensed something was off even before he spoke, but nothing could have prepared me for his words. "Mia," he said, clearing his throat, "there's something I've been thinking about." I braced myself. Maybe a conversation about work, bills, or even the long overdue vacation we'd been putting off. But his next words shattered any notion of normalcy. "I think we should try something new in our marriage." His tone was calm, too calm, as if he were merely suggesting a new restaurant to try. But I could tell from the look in his eyes that this was something bigger, something serious. Confusion gripped me. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice careful. Ethan leaned forward, his expression unreadable. "I just think a little change might bring us closer." I stared at him, waiting for some indication that he was joking, a smirk, a laugh, anything. But none came. Instead, he studied me, waiting for my reaction. "You're not serious," I said, shaking my head. "I am," he replied simply. A heavy silence filled the room. The space between us stretched wider than ever before. I felt the weight of his words pressing down on me, suffocating. "Ethan, this isn't us," I whispered, my voice barely audible. He sighed. "I just want us to be happy." Anger flared inside me. "And you think this is the way to do it?" He didn't waver. "I thought you might be open to it." I stood, needing distance. The walls of our home, once comforting, now felt foreign. "I can't believe we're even having this conversation." Ethan watched me, his expression unreadable, and then he said something that made my blood turn cold. "I already invited someone to dinner tomorrow, just to talk." I froze. "You what?" I wanted to see how you'd feel about it before saying anything. My stomach churned. He had already set things in motion without even asking me, without considering how I would feel. And in that moment, I realized something that shook me to my core. Ethan wasn't the man I thought he was. I wanted to argue, to scream, to demand an explanation. But instead, I turned away, my mind spinning. I needed time to process, to understand how the man I had trusted for years could betray me like this. The next day dragged on, each moment thick with tension. I went through the motions, cooking, setting the table, each action feeling robotic. My heart pounded as I thought about what was coming. Then the doorbell rang. I flinched at the sound, my breath hitching. This was it. Ethan opened the door, greeting our guest with a handshake and a laugh that felt too easy, too rehearsed. I walked into the living room, and there he was, Ryan, tall, confident, composed. His presence filled the space, and the way he looked at me made my skin crawl. "Mia, this is Ryan," Ethan said, his hand resting on my arm in a way that felt more like control than comfort. Ryan smiled. "It's nice to finally meet you." I swallowed hard, forcing a polite nod. Likewise. Dinner was a blur. Conversations felt forced, every word laced with unspoken tension. My hands trembled as I held my fork, barely touching my food. I felt like I was being watched, assessed. Then Ethan placed his fork down and looked at me. "You two should talk alone for a bit," he said, too casually. "Get to know each other better." I stiffened. "Ethan, I think it's a good idea," Ryan interjected smoothly. I wanted to say no. I wanted to stand up and walk away. But something kept me frozen in place. A storm of emotions raged inside me, anger, confusion, disbelief. Ethan patted my shoulder, his touch lingering. "Just talk," he said. "That's all." Then he walked away, leaving me alone with Ryan. I sat stiffly, my heart pounding. Ryan leaned in slightly, his presence overwhelming. "You don't have to be nervous," he said, his voice calm. I forced a smile. "I'm not." But I was. Time stretched as we spoke, each word a careful dance. But beneath the surface, I could feel something else, a shift, a realization. I had a choice. And in that moment, clarity washed over me. I wasn't going to let someone else dictate my life, my choices, my marriage. I stood abruptly, my voice steady. This isn't for me. Ryan studied me for a moment, then nodded, as if he had expected it. I understand. I turned and walked away, finding Ethan in the kitchen. His expression was unreadable. It's over, I told him firmly. He hesitated. Mia, no. I interrupted. Whatever this was, it's over. And if you can't accept that, then we're over too. Silence. And then, finally, he nodded. I grabbed my phone, my fingers shaking slightly as I typed out a final message. Ryan, don't contact me again. I hit send, exhaling as the weight of the last 24 hours settled over me. As I walked back to my room, I knew that my marriage would never be the same. Trust had been broken, and some things couldn't be repaired, but I had made my choice. And for the first time in a long time, I felt in control. The ghosts of the past might linger, but they no longer had power over me.